Hello, and welcome to Ryan and Brian's Bible Bistro, a podcast all about the Bible, theology, and all things related to the Christian faith. I'm the Ryan half of Ryan and Brian, and this is episode number 41, and it is also our final episode for both season 1 and the year 2021. In this Christmas episode, Brian and I are talking about the world in which Jesus was born into and what that means for us. Before we get started, I just want to say a quick thank you to all of you who have been listening this year. Brian and I have had a lot of fun and are excited about next year. And as I say every week, we would love if you would share our podcast with friends, as word of mouth is the best way for us to expand our audience in the new year. All right, I think that's about everything I've got for today. Let's jump right in. Hey, Brian.
Hey, Ryan. How are you doing today?
I'm good.
Good.
You doing well?
I'm doing well. It's we're getting ready to talk about Christmas. It's not quite Christmas when we're recording this, but when people are listening to it, it'll be Christmas. So
that is correct.
Or the week
you
of.
are correct. When they the week of before the Christ child's arrival on December 25th, right?
Right.
In
Yeah.
year zero. Is that right?
Yeah.
Is that accurate dating?
No, there was no year
Brian,
zero.
this is a joke. And engage with me, Brian.
Oh, okay.
Oh, you are the absolute worst. I'm trying to liven it up here, Eeyore, as we just talked about in previous episodes.
So, hey, speaking
Anyway,
of previous episodes, I just heard today from my sister-in-law, and she was talking about
turkey slop.
Turkey slop. Yeah, and she confirmed that indeed I did name Turkey slop. That was the name that I gave it, and just an interesting thing overall. But
yes, that is interesting.
Yeah,
it's an interesting turkey bread, butter, and salt in a pan.
Yes, indeed.
And again, I believe this confirms you are terrible at naming things.
I will,
except your children. They're beautiful names.
I will take credit for that. Anyway, no, it and I'd sent you a picture of turkey slop, and you said it looked much better than it sounded, right? So
yeah. Again, the essence of the problem.
All right.
So yes,
well, I guess
it looked pretty good.
I guess the good news is I've never
good.
been good at naming things because I was a kid when I named it that, so it's always been a problem. So
you're consistent.
Yeah.
You're consistent. Well,
so what are you up to this season?
not a whole lot. We're actually taking our children to Harry Potter World.
Oh, nice.
In our Universal Studio here shortly as a little bit of a Christmas present.
Is that Orlando? Is that?
Orlando, yes. Heading down to Orlando for a couple days. Gonna go down there right before the holidays to, get their Harry Potter fill. But, we're getting ready to celebrate the season, with the Christmas trees up. Right. We've got some kids choir stuff at school. So, just trying to prepare for the season and do as much as we can. And of course, being a part of the bistro.
Right. So
that's our tradition.
So we've been doing quite a bit with Christmas. We did 4 weeks of Advent, right? And then,
correct.
And then today we're going to talk about Christmas a little bit, and then we're going to take a break for a couple of weeks. That's the
yes, we
rumor.
are going to take a break.
Okay.
Well, it's factual. It's not just a rumor. I can confirm. So we're going to take probably a 2-3 week break here at the end of the year because, well, we should all be doing stuff with our families, and that's what I want to be doing. And so, every week we've been pumping it out here. We've almost been 3/4 of a year here, and so we're going to take a little bit of a break. But we've got some fun episodes that we've already been talking about. I don't know if we want to. Well,
we're going to have
coming back. We're going to come back hot.
We have some interviews that have been on hold for a while that we're really looking forward to, and have some new guests. We're going to have maybe back some guests that we've had in the past, and then we're going to discuss some books that we've been thinking about. A lot of actually it's, and I'll go ahead and put a plug in here. Anytime that if you're a listener and you want to give us ideas, there's been some listeners who have asked us about some particular books that we're going to be discussing. And so there's plenty of opportunity for the new year if you want to give us some ideas about what you'd like to hear us talk about. So,
yeah. So, and I'm really excited for what a book that we're going to be talking about coming back.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about how the Bible actually works. Actually. That'll make more sense when we actually talk about the book.
Right.
But it's we're going to take on some of the stuff that's on out there. Of course, we're going to be a positive spin, positive for all of us. But yeah, we're going to take a 2 or 3 week break. This is going to be our last episode here until the new year. We'll keep you updated on the Facebook page, the MySpace page, all of the pages where you can find out when we'll be returning.
Right.
But we will be back, so do not fear. I did get some listeners that I told we were going to take a break, and they were not pleased.
They're like, that's the end of all good podcasts is, we're going to have a short break, but
oh no, it's
but
over.
we do have,
Like,
I would say that it's one of the biggest lies you ever hear when you're out at a music venue is, we're going to take a short break for the band. And you know.
Well, I invited them in the midst of that, we're looking for wealthy patrons to support us going forward. So if you'd like to keep it,
there's always that opportunity. And we
going.
always encourage people to share about our podcast and let people know, because more people that are out there listening, and we're getting quite a few listeners. We've had a good couple of shares on Facebook. Thanks to Clayton. He said some good things about us, and some other people who've been sharing. We appreciate that. So
and I say this every week, and I think most people tune me out on the beginning, and the outro is that, like, sharing is the best way to help us kind of share the message and get the word out there, because neither you, Brian, or I are social media mavens.
It's true.
Or I'm not an influencer. I might get a hat, though. If I can get a hat for Instagram, then I could be an influencer.
Well, anyway.
But anyway, so yes, we appreciate everybody that's listened and been a part of this so far. But we will be back, so we're setting that up. But now we're going to talk about Christmas,
Yeah.
Brian.
Well,
Tell us about the coming
Well, I
of
actually
the
am
Lord.
going to ask you this question first. So what, when you think about Christmas, what do you think about, Ryan? When you think about it in terms of not just the family stuff we've been talking about or the preparations, but what do you think about when you think about Christmas?
I think about the baby Jesus.
Okay.
The coming, it's how the New Testament kind of kicks off, is like, this is something new that God is coming into the world.
Right.
So that's what I think of.
Okay. Well, yeah, we talked about.
Is that the right answer?
No, it's a fine answer. I didn't know what you would mention. It's
when you pop these questions up, I know Brian's going to set me up and beat me down.
Well, I'm not. I try to do what I can, but no, I was not. I wasn't looking for anything in particular. But here's the interesting thing for us. I think when it comes to Christmas, I know as someone who's in the ministry every year, in the preaching ministry every year. Comes around, and it's like, do we preach the same sermon again, or do we make something new, or what? How do we make it interesting and engaging? And yet that's the time. There are many people. Usually, one of our largest attendances of the year is on Christmas, or Sunday that's close to Christmas, and so thinking about how to talk about Christmas and getting some of the meaning out of it is always a challenge, I think. And that's why I just wondered what you had in mind, anything you found particularly interesting about Christmas, or any thoughts that you had.
Yeah.
Good.
I would say, like, as a, I've struggled in the past, and I don't know if this is like talking about struggles, but yes, you kind of get in that rut of it's coming every year. Like, how should I feel?
Right.
And it's hard, because we've so commercialized it to, like, how do I separate my feelings about Christmas, like about Christ versus the family and all that other stuff, and going, how do I make it? And, it's exciting for me. But I also think about, like, well, what Jesus really told us to remember was his death on the cross, not like, hey, although remember the day I was born. But I'm not saying it's bad.
No, the incarnation is an important part of this as well. It's interesting. I've mentioned this before. Of the 4 Gospels that we have in the New Testament, only 2 of them really give us any of the birth story at all. That's Matthew talks a little bit about the birth of Jesus, but Luke is really the one who gives us the most detailed. Most of what we think of as Christmas when we think about the birth of Jesus comes from Luke, a little bit from Matthew. Mark begins with the preaching of John the Baptist. He just gets right into it. And John, of course, begins with this big poetic thing about the beginning of the world and the Word and the pre-existent Word, and he really is focused, I think, on incarnation there. Some people have talked about the Book of Revelation has this scene of the birth of the Christ child, we would say, or this one who's supposed to be born of woman, and it contains a red dragon. Right. So we've got that kind of interesting imagery in that story as well. So it's only two of the Gospels that give us anything about the birth of Jesus. But yet again, I think the church for a long time, and we all feel this, right? That you mentioned Easter, and I'm not taking away from what you said there. I think that's absolutely true. But for whatever reason, the church has decided these are two celebrations that we're going to pay a special attention to: the time of Jesus' birth and the time of his death, burial, and then, of course, Easter Sunday is really about his resurrection. And so it's just an interesting, interesting kind of thing that the New Testament. All the gospel writers didn't even find it important enough to talk about, but a couple of them did. And so I thought and I'm going to show you how astute I am here today, is I thought, since we're a podcast, let's do something visual. So
for the win, everybody.
So I have a picture that I have sent to you, and we're going to post this. It's an older photo. We're going to post a link to it on our website if you want to look at it. But I just sent it to you today, Ryan, for you to kind of peruse. It's by an artist, a Dutch artist from the 16th century. His name is I'm going to pronounce this in an English way. His name is Peter Bruegel. I'm not gonna pronounce it in the correct way because it's a little bit too Flemish for me. That was a little dad joke there, but anyway.
And moving on.
This painting, though, here's where you come in, Ryan. I want you to describe this. How would you describe this painting? What is this scene? Paint the picture with words for our listeners today.
It is a muted scene, muted colors,
right,
of serfs, people,
peasants,
not
right?
Peasants.
That's the word that's usually used. Yeah.
Yes. It's a town where life is busy, people doing their regular things, but there is a group that is gathered.
Okay.
It seems I'm going to say it looks kind of like a barn.
Okay.
There's a group gathered there. There's someone there. It looks like he's writing something down as these people come up, and it looks like he's paying a little something. Someone in a green tunic is paying the man,
giving him money.
There a little bit of money, and so it looks like there's farm life happening, but there's a group of people congregating around one building, and looks like they're registering or paying something.
About how many people in this whole scene, in this whole painting, do you think there are?
I'm gonna say there is 60.
Okay. Because there's people in the distance as well. There's people gathered around another building in the background. You might notice. What time of year would you say it is?
Oh, this is definitely a winter scene. We've got snow. We've got sticks. The trees have no leaves.
There's a frozen lake in the background that people are walking across with packs on their back and this kind of thing. And so
we have a pig being slaughtered. I see.
Yeah,
that also.
It's interesting. You said daily life. There's kind of snowball fights going on. There's a pig being slaughtered. There's people kind of going about their business, doing the things that they're supposed to be doing. Several kinds of buildings. There's buildings that are falling down, and there's some that are more up to date kind of buildings, and just a lot going on. In fact, somebody's building a shed here in the kind of the upper right hand side of this. There's lots going on. Young people, older people, just a lot happening. People cooking, people going about their daily lives. Now, Bruegel called this the Census at Bethlehem. That was what he titled this painting. And do you see anything at all that would suggest why he would call it that?
I see a woman in a blue wrap sitting upon a donkey.
Okay, and it
looks like someone's leading the woman on the donkey.
So you have this. Now, did you notice that at first, though, when I first sent you this, or not?
I did not.
Okay, and so that's the interesting thing I found about this painting, and that's kind of the point I wanted to make for us kind of as we think about Christmas. And I think Bruegel did this intentionally. He gave us this image, the kind of the traditional image, really, of Mary on the donkey and Joseph leading her. She's got her blue robe on that we usually think of with in association with Mary, and you don't notice it at first, right? It's not really the first thing that draws your eye because there's a lot going on. There's a lot that's happening around. And here's what I think so interesting about this is when we think about the birth of Jesus, or let's put it this way, you're going to get probably how many Christmas cards? I know you're a popular guy, so you guys, well, your wife Lauren is a very popular lady. But
there we go. That's better.
You're going to get
That's
a
better.
few
That's more
hundred
accurate.
Christmas cards, probably, maybe 1,000 Christmas cards, something like that. But
I'm not that popular.
when
No.
you have the scenes of Jesus' birth, usually they seem to be very isolated, right? And very quiet. And yet the Bible gives us detail that suggests that's not the case. Because you might remember that the whole point of Jesus being born in the manger is that there was no room for them in the sleeping areas, in the normal places that people would stay. It was a busy time because all of the people who were descendants of David had come back to Bethlehem. All these descendants of Judah had come back to this place in order to be registered for the census. That's how Luke chapter 2 begins. That's how Luke begins his story about the birth of Jesus, by saying this took place in the context of a Roman census. Now, we could talk about some things that I think are interesting about that. Maybe we'll do that another day, and there's some people who even question, when was this census? Do we have historical record? That's not really my point today. Here's my point: is we get this image, I think, sometimes that the birth of Jesus happened in this very, it's out of the way, quiet kind of place, when it would have been in the middle of a bustle. Mary and Joseph coming down to Bethlehem would have been among thousands, literally, of people who would have been traveling on the roads trying to get back to their place of birth. And so it would have been a place of noise and a place of confusion, a place of uncertainty, I think. Not even here's this woman who's very pregnant, about to give birth, and to not even know where you're going to be staying that night, I think is kind of the image that we get. And it's a place, it's noise and it's confusion around us. Now, the reason I think that's important is because that's kind of like we are too sometimes, right? And I think we especially struggle with this around the holidays. You mentioned a time for us to spend time with family, and yet just this week, and I hadn't even thought about saying this, but just this week, I'm thinking about the number of people who have said to me, well, the holidays are a very busy time. In other words, they've been talking about, let's get together, but man, the holidays are just too busy. Let's do it another time. And so this time where we remember the birth of Jesus is a little bit like that first census in Bethlehem would have been, right? This time of confusion, this time of noise. Our lives are not like Hallmark cards. They're not like quietness where there's solitude just with the family, we all sitting around the Christmas tree singing "Oh Holy Night" or whatever. And so here, I guess, is the point I'm trying to make, that Jesus was born into this real kind of world. And that's the thing I appreciate about this painting by Bruegel is that it is a real world. Life is going on around them. The other interesting thing I keep thinking is how many people would have been within a stone's throw of Jesus' birth and had no idea about the significance of what was happening there. Because they had their own stuff going on, right? They had their own lives and their own issues going on. And so I guess for me, it's thinking about this idea that we have to be the people who make the time and who pay attention to the significance of what's happening at Jesus' birth. We're the ones who are responsible for making sure that we don't miss in our busyness, that kind of an idea. I often think when I look at this painting, and you did a good job describing these are kind of daily life scenes, I kind of think if we were painting this today, what kind of scenes do you think we would include? Do you have any? Because we're not really rural peasant folk, most of us these days, but what kind of scenes?
Are we talking suburbs here? Or are we talking urban centers?
I think any of them. I mean, whatever you think. I mean, it's
shopping.
Yeah.
Grocery store.
Yeah. Right. Instead of slaughtering the hog, we'd be
go to the grocery store
at Kroger, or whatever your local grocery store is. So don't want to name
going to the mall.
any
The people that are shopping here,
right?
Filling up our gas tanks,
right? Going,
you know what I mean? Like
going on trips, right? Going to see family. Sometimes that, as much as you want to see your family, if they live at a distance, sometimes that is just a hassle to travel. Maybe it's busy airports. What other kind of ideas do you have there?
Stuck in traffic. Our house, it gets real busy around our house because there's a mall and it's awful.
Right.
Yeah, and it's just like it's the general. I think it's a general bit like it's our kids getting ready for Christmas, like kids programs and that kind of stuff. So I think there's a whole variety of things to. Now, going to see Christmas lights is its own. It's its whole thing.
Right. So kind of my point, I guess, is this: the interesting truth though is that Jesus came to be our peace. We talked about peace a couple of weeks ago on our episode there. Jesus came to be our peace. And, that's the interesting thing. Listen to Romans chapter 5. I want you to listen to this passage, and then I'm going to look at one in Psalm 46 if you want to go ahead and turn there. But I'll just read this. Romans chapter 5, verses 1 and 2. Paul says, "Therefore, since we have been justified through faith, we have peace with God." And we've talked about this before, that our sin has broken our relationship not only with God, but also with lots of other things around us. We have peace with God through our Lord Jesus Christ, through whom we have gained access by faith into this grace in which we now stand. I quoted on an earlier episode, Ephesians chapter 2, which talks about he himself, Jesus himself, is our peace, making the two one. In other words, he's reconciled our relationship with other people as well. And so it's interesting in this time, and here's the thing I want us to remember. We talk about the Prince of Peace. You may see that on some of your Christmas cards. Mm-hmm. He came to be our peace, and yet it's in the midst of this busyness that we remember his coming. Now, it's not necessarily a bad thing because that's life. That's daily life. But what I'm saying is that we need to recognize the peace that is in our midst. We can't become, we don't want to be like the people who were so engaged in their day-to-day life that they missed this important event that was taking place in their very presence. And so again, I would say for us, maybe the most important thing that's going to happen is our recognizing again who Jesus is. It's not all the malls and all the travel and all that kind of thing that's the most important. But what is most important is recognizing who he is. Any thoughts on that or comments?
Yeah, I think that's, I think I've said this almost every episode. I think that's the hard part,
right?
Is to not let it slip by, and it's, I had this conversation with somebody recently, and we talked about how church used to be,
right? And
like, it was like Wednesday nights, that we'd have like a meal at the church, and like, a lot of churches don't do that anymore. Right. And it was just like, our culture will take as much as we give it. You know what I mean? Like the world will take as much of our attention and our time as we'll give it. And, every year I come back to this feeling of like, how do I make more of this time? How do I make more of that reflection? Right. And to not let it become something that is a busyness of my life, that I just let it fly by. And I think that's the, and I think that's the what I liked about that photo as we talked about it is that like in the midst of our chaos that comes to peace. It's not like, oh, he makes everything peaceful and then he comes.
That's exactly
he is peace in the midst of life.
Yeah, that's exactly the point I was wanting to make, and I appreciate you saying that. That was really what I want to get across. Is it's not that peace is just absence of activity or anything like that, but the peace has to come in the midst of the reality of where we are. Is what I'm trying to say. Mm-hmm. Thank you very much for saying that.
Yeah, we had a minister once on a Christmas Eve that the service was very small, and he's like realizing that Jesus didn't come with a marketing team.
Right.
You know what I mean? He came as a child,
right.
And, and it was this quietness,
right.
He came like the world was still spinning around it, but he came in quietly, to, and who he is and how he came into the world.
So here's the other passage. This goes right along with what you're saying. So I'm going to bring this in right now, Ryan. Psalm 46, I said to take a look at there.
I'm there.
Go ahead. What's that? Do you have it?
I'm there.
Okay. Read the first three verses. And again, I want you to notice this. We'll go ahead and just read those first three verses, and we'll look at some of the rest of it in a minute.
God is our refuge and strength, an ever-present help in trouble. Therefore we will not fear, though the earth give way and the mountains fall into the heart of the sea, though its waters roar and foam and the mountains quake with their surging.
So it's the same kind of thing that we've been saying. Is it talks about God's being this passage is all about God. Is we can trust in Him, and we can take our refuge, and we can look to Him for our strength. But it's not that the circumstances around us are going away. It's not that we're taken out of the problems that we face. It says there, He is our ever-present help in times of trouble, or in our trouble is where He comes. And then that description, I mean, how much worse can that be? The earth gives way, the mountains fall into the sea, the waters roar and foam, the mountains quake. You know, that's an image of even the physical world around us being upset and in torment, and yet the answer is we can find refuge in God. Let me read the next few verses, the same kind of an idea. This is verses 4-7. There is a river whose streams make glad the city of God, the holy place where the Most High dwells. God is within her, she will not fall. God will help her at break of day. Nations are in uproar, kingdoms fall. He lifts his voice, the earth melts. And so there again, we have that picture, that image of God's kingdom. Oh, and verse 7 is the Lord Almighty is with us. God of Jacob is our fortress. God is with us. He's the one who protects us. But the nations are in uproar and kingdoms are falling. You know, it's not that those things have ceased. It's not that daily life has come to an end, but it's that God is our peace. He's our strength in the midst of this. So come read this last bit there for us, 8-11, if you would.
Yeah. Come and see what the Lord has done, the desolations He has brought on the earth. He makes wars cease to the ends of the earth. He breaks the bow and shatters the bow and shatters the spear. He burns the shields with fire. He says, "Be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted in the earth. The Lord Almighty is with us. The God of Jacob is our fortress."
So again, we have this image of an end to hostility, an end to war. But this passage, and this is really the reason that this psalm stuck out to me today, as we're thinking about what it means to be peaceful in this time, is we have this challenge: be still and know that I am God. And you've heard that passage before. I know this idea: be still and know that He is God. And that's, I guess, what I want to say is that we need to have those times. Not, we can't wait till a time when our circumstances allow us to be quiet or allow us to have that time, but we have to carve out those times in our lives, I think, to be in the very presence of God. This time of year for many of us is a change of routine, and we're going to be gone until after the first of the year. It's also a time where some of us begin to think about maybe things we want to do differently in our lives in the year to come. And so I wanted to make this challenge to say, let's take some time every day, no matter how long it is, to be in the presence of God, to be quiet, and to allow His peace to enter within us. Again, it's not a doing away with the conflict. It's not a doing away with our circumstances, but it's being peaceful in the midst of this time. When you look at that painting again, the census at Bethlehem, and you think about kind of the things that you described, Ryan, from our daily life, from our school, if we're students, or in our workplace, or in our family life, or in our community, those kind of scenes of life around us. Well, what I'm saying is it's taking time to be quiet in the midst of that, and being in the presence of God and acknowledging who He is in the coming of Christ, that I think it is important. Jesus came in a very quiet way. As you mentioned, He came as a babe. And so I think it's important for us to take the time to recognize and to notice that in the midst of it. And that's kind of the message I wanted to get across today. Anything else you want to say or add? Or
Yeah, and I think that's, as we focus on Him, I think, that's one of the things of the magic of Christmas doesn't go away in some ways. You know what I mean? I think it's at some point the lights will come down, the wreaths will go away and family will go home, and you're just like, oh, it's over for, but like there is something far greater than that. If we would take the time and notice, and that, Christmas is the gift that keeps on giving. The incarnation is the gift that, that's not to make it cheesy,
I
but
get
like,
what
as
you're
as
saying.
we focus on that it's, this time doesn't have to, I think that there's always that sort of downer that comes afterwards where it's like, oh, you got through Christmas and then winter's setting in and it's the cold and it's the
Middle of February.
please,
right.
Lord, let the life come back to the outside. And,
Well,
that's what,
and I like what you
Yeah.
said, because I remember as kids, we kind of have this great expectation about what Christmas is, and it's a time we look forward to every year. But I guess what I'm saying is, even as adults, we really recognize what it means that God took on flesh and lived in our midst, and came so that we could have these broken relationships healed. I think it's really an opportunity for us again to grasp hold of. You said the magic of Christmas, but this mystery, maybe this specialness of this time of year, the silence of this time of year, just a time for us to tap into that and to make it, like you said, more a part of our lives.
yeah, absolutely.
And the last thing I guess I should acknowledge as well, we talk about family a lot and those kind of things, but I do know for some people this is a very difficult time of the year. And the family isn't always what it's supposed to be, and there may be brokenness there, even within our families and friends. But again, that's why Christ came. He came to heal, to bring healing to us, our relationship with God, and to make us internally the people that we can be, and also to bring healing to relationships as well. And I believe very strongly that God is able to do that. God is able to, in Christ, bring about that reconciliation. So,
Absolutely. He is the peacemaker.
yep, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Brian, thank you so much for leading us through the Advent series and Christmas.
It's been
And
enjoyable.
yes, and again, just a reminder, we'll be back in January with season 2 of the Bible Bistro.
You said we're thinking about
so-
changing the music. Is that correct? That's a.
Well, I'm just,
We should have a poll. We should have a voter poll. I really
Oh.
like our theme music. I think it's really kind of
Well,
cool. It's
Are you trying to apply social pressure on me not to change the music?
no.
now,
I just
Brian?
wonder what our listeners would think. How many of them would? I'm up for. You did a great job finding you. That was totally you. That was your finding that music. I think you did a great job on it, and I think I think you could do equally well. So
Just, well, maybe we'll put it out there. Is it like during the time, if people feel like they want to engage with us, like put out a survey. What do you
Right.
think? What do you think about the music?
Okay.
What do you like? But yeah, we'll be back here at the beginning of January, season 2. And we got some fun topics with you to talk about. And we have some opportunities for you, the listener, to engage with us some
good.
more. So,
And I'll say, since we're not
really
going to
appreciate
hear
it.
from you again, Merry Christmas. And I'll say Merry Christmas,
Merry
Ryan,
Christmas.
to you and your family. And
you as well. You don't still have turkey slop, do you?
we may have a little bit left.
Do you have like ham at Christmas? Then you have ham
We usually
slop?
have turkey and turkey slop again because we like it that
Do you really?
much. We love turkey slop.
my. Have you tried it with other meats?
I don't think ham slop. I think ham slop is spam. Well, there goes Hormel for a sponsor.
Hormel. Bible Bistro brought to you by Spam.
Today we're going to talk about the book of Leviticus and the kosher laws. Okay.
Wow.
Never mind.
All right.
So
Well,
to our
here we go.
listeners, Merry Christmas.
So to our listeners,
Happy
Merry
New Year,
Christmas.
and maybe a blessed New Year for you. God bless.
Yeah. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Ryan and Brian's Bible Bistro. Next week, we won't be here. Well, we'll still be on the earth, God willing, but there won't be a new episode of the Bistro. Again, we're going to take a 2 or 3 week break before we come back with season 2. We hope you will join us for that. Thanks again for listening and being a part of season 1. We'll see you next year.